The U.S. just came out with their latest threat report. Washington says it's facing critical years in the great power competition. The U.S., this is just recently, March 8th, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence released the annual Threat Assessment Report, which evaluates worldwide threats to U.S. national security, including cyber and technological threats, terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, crime, environmental, and natural resources issues. The report highlights the challenges Washington faces in the rapidly devolving U.S.-led global order. Yeah, U.S.-led global order. And why is it U.S.-led? Oh, because we want to rule the world. With China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea identified as the most significant security challenges for Western allies in the coming year. And again, this is them admitting that this shit is going down, that the people are stepping outside the petrodollar, that there's security blocks, military security blocks amongst countries that we consider enemies. They're admitting this in this threat report. This threat report largely isn't for public consumption. I don't mean it was leaked. It is released outwardly, but it's not like they do a bunch of, mainstream media press junkets on telling everybody what the greatest threats are. And so they're admitting that this is their largest threat to the U.S. empire. But this is also a, propaganda article in their terminology, talking about how the report highlights the challenges Washington faces. What does that mean? Oh, that means other countries actually having their own sovereignty, actually standing up for themselves and being outside of the fucking stranglehold of the U.S. empire that has cooed and killed so many of their leaders. That's what challenges Washington faces means. U.S.-led global order. That's like saying Hitler had a, Hitler-led German order. It's like, yeah, he was a fucking tyrant who ran Germany and the other countries that he took over. It's not like U.S.-led. Like we just said, hey guys, would you like to lead us? I mean, would you like to follow us? Come on, guys. Yeah. It's not like we just said to countries like, we're really good at like just leading. We're just like really good at this. So if you want to just come on, I know it's not like they're talking about it like it's the kid on the playground who's like, I know where there's like a stash over in the woods of like comic books and candy and fireworks that someone's hid there. Follow me to the secret stash of comic books, candies, and fireworks. And you're like, okay, I'll totally follow this guy. He is our leader because he knows where the fucking candy is. That's the way they're talking about it. No, this is the U.S. bending countries to their will, sometimes killing and cooing their leaders their democratically elected leaders in order to do that. So it's not U.S.-led global order. It's the U.S. dictating global hegemony is what it is. Unsurprisingly, the report identifies China as the top U.S. threat due to its efforts to undermine U.S. influence worldwide. God forbid the U.S. shouldn't rule the world. Create different and here's the thing: it's not like I personally just think the U.S. shouldn't rule the world, and that's a personal decision. No, the world is cracking under the weight of our greed and unfettered capitalism and unfettered militarism. It is just cracking and crumbling. The environment is collapsing around us. So it's not like a personal opinion like, oh, I think the U.S. shouldn't run things. It's like if we want to see a future, the countries need to work together and have their own sovereignty and their own ability to address their concerns in their country, and communities should, and environmentally and all the and get outside of just capitalist exploitation of every people and place and environment, the natural world. We've killed 50% of all wildlife over the past 40 years. This is not a personal opinion. This is how it fucking the only way we can survive. So I think people like hear me say like, oh, the U.S. empire needs to come to an end, and they go, oh, well, that's his opinion. It's not. It's like if we want to survive, it has to come to an end. If you want to see a future, if you want your grandkids to see a bird in the sky, it needs to come to an end. Okay? Do you get it? Identifies China as the top U.S. threat due to its effort to undermine influence worldwide, create differences between Washington and its allies. China created the differences between Washington and the countries that we've turned into vassal states like most of Europe. Washington did that. And annex Taiwan. Here's some wonderful propaganda for you. Annex Taiwan. Now, for those of you in the watching right now, I'll pose a question to you. How many countries around the world officially recognize Taiwan as its own country? I'll give you a moment to think that over and answer. And, you may be going, okay, most of the countries in the world, half the countries. It's 13, maybe it's 12 now. Countries out of 200 or whatever, around 200. 12 say that Taiwan is its own country. So how is it China can annex a country that's not a country? But, this is the propaganda that U.S. is putting forward. The recent success of China in facilitating, by the way, Washington also says Taiwan is part of China. It's still our official policy, is that Taiwan is part of Washington, is part of China. So despite the fact that they're writing shit like that, it's still our official policy in DC. I'm sure they'll change it soon, but that Taiwan is part of China. The recent success of China in facilitating a reconciliation agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia illustrates Beijing's growing role in West Asia and the world and signals a shift in the post-World War II global balance of power. Did you catch that? China facilitating peace, a reconciliation agreement, meaning a détente between Iran and Saudi Arabia, two massive, strong countries. Wow, peace, that sounds like a good thing. And also that peace is having an impact on many of the battles and wars and conflicts throughout the region in other countries that are not China, that are not Iran and Saudi Arabia. So it's not just peace in those two countries, it's peace spreading through that region. And this report, this threat analysis by the U.S. government says this is really threatening. This is really awful. We are seeing peace in certain regions of the world. Wow, let's be upset. That's how belligerent and militaristic the U.S. is. We have a war economy. Much of our money is based on war, and we need endless war, and we need endless strife because we don't want these countries to have their own sovereignty, to stand up and be independent. And so we say things like the fact that China has helped create peace in certain areas is a horrible, threatening thing to us. U.S. academic and foreign policy columnist, which means he must be a fucking shill for empire, Stephen Walt describes the détente between Riyadh and Tehran as a wake-up call for the U.S. foreign policy establishment. It's a wake-up call. How dare another country create peace where we want endless war? He notes how China is attempting to present itself as a force for peace in the world. No, not present itself. It has been, if you look at that détente between Iran and Saudi Arabia, if you look at pushing for peace in the proxy war between Russia and the U.S., if you look at so many of these things, China has been a force for peace. I'm sorry. I'm not saying everything about China is great, but fucking has been a force for peace compared to the U.S. Quick reminder, folks, how many military bases does the U.S. have outside of U.S. borders? 900. How many military bases does China have outside of Chinese borders? 1. Just a quick reminder. He notes how China is attempting to present itself for, I already said that part, force for peace in the world, a mantle that the U.S. has largely abandoned in recent years. Yeah, the U.S. has abandoned our peace-creating role around the world. Because all those times the U.S. created peace around the world. We did a great job of that, didn't we?